Fans came to see Speed K, but they stayed because one man's stunts were so wild that officials didn't know whether to ban him or praise him.
You've seen that one photograph a million times. The long-haired kid in the tie-dye shirt, helmet under his arm, standing beside that screaming yellow, flame-painted funny car sitting on its rear bumper like it's ready to flip over backwards. If you're old enough to remember the summer of 1972, that picture was taped on every garage wall from coast to coast. But here's what nobody ever told you about the man in that photo. This is the raw, unfiltered story of Russell James, Jungle Jim, Liberman, the original wild man who, starting right around 1967, grabbed drag racing by the throat and turned a quiet Sunday sport into the loudest, wildest, most profitable show in America. Before John Force ever cracked a microphone, before the $1 million haulers, before they started charging $20 just to stand in the pits, there was only one guy crazy enough to light the tires on fire for 30 full seconds at 8:15 on a Friday night under the lights. Drive backwards down the track at 100 miles per hour at 9:42 in the evening while the crowd lost their minds. And keep his foot buried at 11:07 in the evening even when the car was sideways and headed for the wall. He didn't race for trophies. He raced to make sure that when you crawled into bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, you could still smell nitro in your clothes and hear 8,000 horsepower in your dreams. And when it all ended tragically at 2 o'clock in the morning on September 9, 1977, just 3 days before his 32nd birthday, America lost its very first drag racing rock star. If you were ever there, if you ever felt those old wooden grandstands shake back in the day, this story is going to take you straight back, and it's going to hurt in all the right ways. So right now, today, November 19th, 2025, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button on Regal Rides, turn on the bell, because in the next 20 minutes we're going all the way back to when drag racing was flat out dangerous and absolutely perfect. Russell James Liberman was born on September 12, 1945, in a little town outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you think he came into this world with a timing light in one hand and a supercharger in the other, you would be dead wrong. Young Russell dropped out of high school in his junior year. Books and classrooms could not hold him. The only thing that ever made his eyes light up was the sound of an open exhaust and the smell of race fuel on a Saturday night. In 1964, at just 19 years old, he packed everything he owned into an old Chevrolet and pointed it west toward Northern California. He landed in the San Jose area, right in the heart of the hottest drag racing scene in the country. His very first passes were not in a funny car, not in anything exotic. They were in bone-stock street cars at Fremont Raceway, the same kind of everyday machines thousands of other kids were racing every weekend from New York to Florida. But even then, running dead stock, something was different about the long-haired kid from Pennsylvania. While everyone else was chasing elapsed times, Russell Liberman was already chasing the crowd. He understood something the others had not figured out yet. Drag racing was never just about who got to the finish line first. It was about who made 10,000 people jump out of their seats and scream until their throats were raw. That simple truth would end up making him a legend, and it all started with nothing more than a 19-year-old kid, a borrowed street car, and a dream bigger than the quarter mile. In 1965, everything changed. At 20 years old, Jungle Jim made the jump from street cars to the wild world of nitromethane funny cars. His first ride was an injected Chevrolet Nova that he named Hercules. Later that same year he got the phone call every young driver dreams about. Lou Arrington handed him the keys to the supercharged Pontiac GTO funny car called Brutus. Here is the part that will shock you. The man who would soon become the loudest, most outrageous personality in all of drag racing was, in 1965, painfully shy. People who knew him back then say he barely spoke above a whisper, sat in the corner of the pits playing a harmonica, and kept to himself. 1966 rolled around and something inside him snapped, in the best possible way. He broke away, built his own steel-bodied, supercharged Chevrolet 2, slapped bright paint all over it, and for the first time ever that car carried the name that would echo through history, Jungle Jim. Nobody knows exactly where the nickname came from. Some say it was the wild paint, some say it was the way he attacked the track like a man possessed. What matters is this: Russell Liberman stopped being just another driver that night. He became a character. He became a brand. He became Jungle Jim himself long before anybody in motorsports even understood what branding meant. And once he put on that persona, there was no taking it off. From that moment forward, every burnout, every pass, every single time he rolled to the starting line, America was about to get the show of its life. 1967 was the year Jungle Jim put the pedal to the floor and never looked back. He loaded up that wild Chevrolet too and hit the road on a non-stop match race tour that tore across the United States like a nitro-fueled hurricane. From Lyons Drag Strip in California to Edgewater in Ohio, from Tulsa to West Palm Beach, every weekend he showed up in a different town with the same promise: bring the loudest crowd you've ever had or I don't get paid. And here's the crazy part, his car was slow. Dead slow compared to the factory-backed machines. While the big teams were clicking off low 7-second passes, Jungle Jim was out there running high 8s, sometimes even 9s. On paper he had no business being on the same track as the stars. But paper doesn't roar. Paper doesn't stand on the rear bumper for 400 feet. Paper doesn't make 10,000 grown men jump the guardrail screaming like teenagers. At one now legendary match race against the great Don Nicholson, Jungle Jim yanked the wheels sky high the instant the light went green and kept them up, the front tires clawing at thin air, for the entire quarter mile. The clock read 8-point-something. The fans didn't care about the clock. They lost their minds. They had never seen anything that reckless, that beautiful, that flat-out insane in their lives. That night, right there under the dim lights of some little track in the middle of nowhere, Jungle Jim figured out the secret that would make him immortal. You do not have to be the fastest to be the favorite. You only have to be the one they can't look away from. By 1968 he doubled down. He added a second car to the stable and put another driver behind the wheel. If one promoter called and he was already booked 3 states away, no problem, send the other Jungle Jim car. The paint was just as wild, the burnouts were just as long, the wheel stands were just as high. The money rolled in whether he won or lost, because winning was never the point. The point was the show, and the show never, ever disappointed, building an empire on match race money. By 1969 Jungle Jim wasn't just a driver anymore. He was running a full-blown operation. He added a third car to the fleet when he bought Mark Sussman's Nova funny car and kept Sussman on payroll as the driver. 3 identical wild-painted, fire-breathing machines, all carrying the Jungle Jim name, all available for booking. Think about that for a second. While the factory stars were chasing points and trophies at 8 or 10 national events a year, Jungle Jim was doing 100 match races every single season. 100 nights under the lights. 100 different racetracks. 100 appearance checks that got cut, win, lose, or crash. That is almost one race every 3 days year-round. New York on Friday, Florida on Sunday, Indiana on Tuesday, Texas by Thursday. Thousands of miles in beat-up trucks, sleeping in the cab, living on coffee and hamburgers, waking up to the smell of race fuel and burning clutch dust. Promoters didn't care what the time slip said. They cared how many tickets they sold before the gates even opened. And when the loudspeaker crackled, "Here comes Jungle Jim," grandstands filled up faster than a church on Christmas Eve. They came to see the 30-second burnout that laid down a smoke cloud thick enough to block the moon. They came to watch him back the car up to the starting line at 100 miles per hour while the other guy was still creeping forward on the trans brake. They came because they knew, no matter what, they were about to see something they would still be talking about 30 years later. The money was guaranteed. Show up, put on the greatest show in racing, collect $5,000 to $10,000 cash, load the car, and roll to the next town. National events? Too expensive, too political, and you only got paid if you won. Jungle Jim won exactly one national event his entire life, 1975 Summer Nationals. Yet when the National Hot Rod Association named their 50 greatest drivers of all time, he landed at number 17. Ahead of men with dozens of trophies. Because Jungle Jim didn't play the game. He changed the game. He proved you could make a fortune, build a legend, and never once bow down to the points chase. That was power. That was freedom. That was the Jungle Jim way, and in the early 1970s nobody else on earth was doing it. So what exactly made a Jungle Jim pass feel like a religious experience? For things, every single time, never failed. First, the burnout. Not some quick little smoke show. 30 full seconds of pure hell. Flames shooting 6 feet out of the headers, tires disappearing inside a white wall of smoke so thick the other driver couldn't see the Christmas tree. The smell of molten rubber and 100% nitro hit the grandstands like a punch in the chest. Second, the wheel stands. He didn't just lift the front wheels. He kept them in the air for 3, 4, sometimes 500 feet. The car balanced on the bumper, nose pointing at the stars, engine screaming at 9,000 revolutions per minute while 10,000 people held their breath waiting for it to loop or land. Third, the reverse run. After the burnout, most drivers creep forward. Jungle Jim slammed it in reverse and flew backwards down the track at 100 miles per hour, headlights shrinking into the smoke, crew guys diving out of the way like it was a war zone. Fourth, the never lift attitude. When the car got loose, when it headed for the wall, when the chutes wouldn't come out, every sane driver lifted. Jungle Jim buried the throttle harder. Sideways, sparks flying, guardrail coming fast, he kept it floored all the way to the finish line stripe. One famous quote from a rival, "Jungle was a maniac behind the wheel, and every fan in the place loved him for it." Put those four things together under the lights on a hot summer night and you didn't just watch a race. You survived an event. You left the track deaf, half blind from the smoke, and already telling your buddies you'd be back next weekend no matter how far you had to drive. That wasn't racing. That was rock and roll on four wheels, and Jungle Jim was the lead singer America never knew it needed. The man behind the madness. Most people only saw the tie-dye shirt, the wild hair, and the crazy stunts, but Jungle Jim never wanted to be just a driver. Back in the 1960s he said it plain in interviews, "I want to build engines. Nobody can tell me what the car is feeling except me, so I have to drive it myself." The wheel stands, the backwards runs, the 30-second burnouts. Those started as a way to pay the bills while he learned every secret of a nitro motor. The road life was brutal. 100 nights a year under the lights meant 350 nights a year in a pickup truck or a cheap motel. The money looked big on paper, but after tires, engines, parts, and travel there was barely enough left to keep the lights on back home. He kept pushing because stopping felt like disappearing. By 1976 and 77 the smile was still there for the crowd, but close friends saw the wear. 31 years old, body beat up from crashes, ears ringing from years of open headers, and the constant pressure to top the last show, it was taking its toll. He started talking about getting off the road, opening a small engine shop in Pennsylvania, maybe living a quieter life. He told people he was tired of being Jungle Jim 24 hours a day. The character had become larger than the man, and the man was running out of fuel. The night it all ended. September 9th, 1977. Just 3 days before his 32nd birthday. Around 2 o'clock in the morning on a dark stretch of West Chester Pike in Pennsylvania, Jungle Jim was driving his yellow 1972 Corvette home. He had been out drinking heavily, friends said he was lower than they had ever seen him. The Corvette drifted across the centerline and slammed head-on into a parked transit bus. The little car wedged itself underneath the bus's front bumper. It took rescue crews almost an hour with the jaws of life to cut him free. Russell James Liberman was pronounced dead at the scene. The wildest flame drag racing ever had was out just like that. When the news hit the wires that Saturday morning, the entire drag racing world stopped cold. Tracks canceled entire race cards. Phones rang off the hook from California to the Carolinas. Grown men who had stood trackside for 20 years and never cried broke down in the pits. The next weekend, every funny car in America carried a black number 1 on the windshield or a small Jungle Jim sticker on the quarter panel. At some tracks they left the left lane empty during time trials. Nobody wanted to be the first to run down the groove where he used to light the tires for half a minute. National Hot Rod Association officials, promoters, even rival drivers, all said the same thing. The quarter mile would never feel as loud or as alive again. One veteran rider put it best, "We didn't lose a driver. We lost the whole damn circus when Jungle Jim left town." The show, the one he had invented from nothing, suddenly had no ringmaster. Jungle Jim Liberman never won a season championship. He never owned the quickest car, never collected a wall full of Wally trophies. In his whole career he won exactly one National Hot Rod Association national event, 1975 Summer Nationals at Englishtown. Just one. Yet in 2001, when the National Hot Rod Association named its 50 greatest drivers of all time, Jungle Jim came in at number 17, ahead of men with 10 times the victories. Because he didn't just race cars. He created stars. Every time John Force cracks a joke on national television, every time a modern funny car driver signs autographs for an hour after the race, every time a promoter sells 20,000 tickets before the first burnout, they are all cashing checks that Jungle Jim wrote 30 years earlier. Before him, drag racing was engines and stopwatches. After him, it was personality, theater, and memories that outlived the man himself. He proved forever that if you could be louder than 8,000 horsepower, brighter than the starting line lights, and more unforgettable than any elapsed time slip ever printed, Jungle Jim didn't just raise the bar. He set the whole damn place on fire and taught everybody else how to dance in the flames. So the next time you're at the track and some driver lays down a 30-second burnout, or stands the car on the bumper halfway down the track, or keeps the throttle pinned when every sane person would have lifted, just remember, that's not just racing. That's Jungle Jim's ghost still roaring down the quarter mile, still refusing to let the crowd forget him. James Liberman gave drag racing its soul. He showed the world that horsepower without heart is just noise, and that one fearless kid with wild hair and a crazy idea could change a sport forever. 48 years after that awful night in 1977, every packed grandstand, every sold-out funny car show, every kid wearing a flame-painted t-shirt owes a debt to the original showman who proved the fans don't just want to see you go fast, they want to feel alive. Thanks for coming along on this ride with us, guys. If this story hit you the way it hit us, do 3 quick things right now. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your favorite Jungle Gym memory, and make sure you're subscribed to Regal Rides with the bell turned on, because we've got a lot more legends waiting to bring back the days when drag racing was dangerous, beautiful, and absolutely perfect. See you at the track.